live, and give us just 1 second. Hi, everyone. My name is Ty Adams, and I want to welcome you to TRA Marketplace 2020. Thank you for joining us for today's session with the Texas Workforce Commission Employer Session. Please feel free to ask questions by using the Q&A window below. But without further ado and delay, I am excited to introduce our Big Bend stage sponsor, Texas Mutual.
In response to the pandemic, Texas Mutual will distribute $330 million in dividends to eligible policyholders 2 months ahead of schedule. We're also sending $2 million to nonprofits on the front lines of the COVID-19 effort. Better days are coming, but in the meantime, we'll be on the job helping Texas businesses. To learn how dividends are supporting employers in this time of need, go to texasmutual.com/dividends.
Thank you so much, Texas Mutual. Awesome state partners and sponsors. To kick this session off, I'd like to introduce our moderator for this session, Commissioner Demison. Commissioner.
Good. Thank you, Ty, so much for the introduction, and for all you guys are doing. Our thanks to Texas Mutual for sponsoring this particular event. And I'll serve as moderator, but before I kick off anything, I definitely want to allow Dr. Knight, Emily Knight, to bring remarks on behalf of the Texas Restaurant Association and the like. Thank you guys for the opportunity. We're looking forward to answering any of the questions that those employers have out there. But Dr. Knight, take it away.
Great, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to everyone who's joined. I mean, I think we're well past 5 months into this journey, and I don't think we ever could have imagined. I know even with the Commissioner, when this first hit and we saw the drop, we lost about 700,000 jobs in just a number of weeks, that we would be sitting here in August. But I think I'd be really remiss if I tend to do this with the Workforce Commission and the Governor's Office, is that we've had extraordinary partnerships through this pandemic. And whether it's our employers, we have had to sift through so much information, whether it be the Families First Act, and then the CARES Act, and then what the new rules are around employees. And that's a lot when you're trying to hold on to your restaurant and put all of your hours in a day and then come back at night and sort through. And so that partnership has allowed us to give direct aid to our employers, but also to be able to have that link to the Governor's Office to step through this reopening together. And I think that's really critical. And that partnership has paid off tremendously. And as we watch that positivity rate now at around the 11% range, getting closer to that 10%, I feel really confident that we'll continue to very safely reopen Texas. What I would love today is that Q&A and chat box below. I know many of you are trying to navigate through things like paid sick leave and employee tax credits and what you can and can't do and shared work. And so please use that to really ask any questions. We're going to go through those with you. And I'd love to have each of the individuals on the call introduce themselves, because I feel like we're fast friends now, and I think that's made a big difference. And I do want to make one little pitch, which is the Workforce Commission is the grant provider of the partnership dollars that we're using with the Dallas College. And that really is around making sure that every restaurant is compliant to the standards the governor set, but also that we have a third-party element that comes in and evaluates that the right things are happening so we can keep dining out and keep expanding. If you're not part of the Restaurant Promise program, please go to the TRA website today and sign up, because you will get that endorsement. Your employees will be trained, gives your employees more confidence to be out there with the public serving again or cooking again. And like I said, due to the generosity of the Workforce Commission and their partnership with Dallas College and TRA, they've made it happen. So a huge thank you. I'll turn it over to Commissioner to introduce the team, and then I think we'll just start jumping into Q&A.
All right, sounds like a plan. And again, Dr. Knight, thank you so much for what you guys are doing, and all those that are on the call. We appreciate you guys being here. We have a dynamic panel here for employment law attorneys that I have on my team, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And we also have Kelly Spillane, and then Dale Robertson, who may be joining us as well. Program that Dr. Knight, I love calling you Dr. Knight. I know you're Emily, but I love Dr. Knight. You worked hard for that, I'm quite sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just Emily, but yeah, I know.
I got you. But the program that you're referencing, Dale Robertson and his team are responsible for operating that program, and we're delighted to have Dale on the call today to talk about that. We want to make sure that we continue to do the right thing. Thank you to your team for working on that initiative with Dallas College as well. We have Kelly Spillane with us from the governor's office as well. I'll allow her to introduce herself at one point as well. But we've had over 50 of these town hall meetings and really making sure that we're getting the word out to employers. This office is just dedicated to making sure that our Texas employers has the best information, best resources available for their success. And so let me do a around the world type deal. And I'll start off with Tommy. You can introduce yourself and then we'll go around from that point. But Tommy, you start us off.
Can everybody see and hear me?
We can see and hear you.
Oh, very, very good. I'm Tommy Simmons, and I'm on Commissioner Demerson's legal staff, and we just try to serve employers as best we can. We have the 800 number. We've got the book, Texas Guidebook for Employers, especially for Texas employers. And we also have the Texas Conference for Employers, and we're going to be bringing that in a virtual fashion in September or October, date to be determined still in the future. And we have a quarterly, now a monthly newsletter, and that's available via email subscription. And we just do our best to keep up with all the questions that come in via email or phone from employers, and just serve our business community as best we can. Anything employment related, if you have questions, we are only too glad to jump into action and try to get answers for you. So I'll turn it back over to the commissioner.
Good. I'm gonna turn it immediately to Melissa. Melissa's been helping out in big ways, but she's got a music group, so she's rubbing elbows with all the musicians here in Texas. And so music, it all goes together in a big way. It's all about awesome. So Melissa, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Velissa Chapa. I am one of the legal staff attorneys for Commissioner Demerson at the Texas Workforce Commission. Truly a pleasure to be here today. We work so hard to try to give people information, news of the day, explain how things work. And so we're doing our best to be a resource for people who have questions and who need guidance and information. So I'm sure a lot of folks on this already know our information, but we have an employer hotline that has been around for years. It's not just because of the pandemic. So if you do have questions from an employer standpoint, you can give us a call. And that number is 1-800-832-9394. Again, 1-800-832-9394, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We are here to answer questions, and we do respond to every inquiry that we get. We don't take ourselves seriously, but we do take our jobs very seriously. So we want everyone to know that we will respond. We are here to help and do everything that we can to serve you and the great state of Texas. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Melissa. And so we're going to move quickly to Elsa, who's joined us as well with the Texas Workforce backdrop there.
That's
Elsa.
right. It's like a halo here. Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us. And Tommy and Velissa did a great introduction as to what we do. I will just add that we also have an email that we take from employers all over Texas and even out-of-state employers who have questions about what's happening with their employees in Texas. And I'll give you that right now. Our email is employer info. So employer, the whole word, and then INFO, like the short for information, employer info, one word, at twc.state.tx.us. So that's employer info at twc.state.tx.us. And if there's a question that you don't get answered today or something that comes up after we finish with our session today, and you're having issues on the phone, you know, a lot of people are trying to call us all over the state. Feel free to email us. We do go through those on a regular basis, daily basis. They're funneled through us. So somebody will see it and will reach out to you. And if we can't help you, we'll get that email and your question to the department that can or the staff that can. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you all.
You got it. Thanks for joining us, Elsa. And then quickly, I'm going to move to Dale Robertson, maybe on the call. It seems like I have two boxes here, Aaron Demerson and Aaron Demerson. So I'm not sure what it is, but if that's Robertson will join, allow Dale to have some comments, but if not, I want to introduce Kelly Spillane with the governor's office as well. And Kelly, thank you guys so much again for participation.
Well, thank you. I guess I'll jump in because we haven't heard from Dale. So I just want to thank you again for including me in this town hall. As always, I really am honored to represent the Office of the Governor as the small business advocate for the state of Texas, but also honored to join this esteemed team and delighted and thrilled to be able to speak to the Texas restaurant community, a community that I personally hold very close to my heart. It's such an important part of my life, and it's such an important part of this economy. And so thank you. It's an honor to be here. The Office of the Governor is proud to be a strategic partner with the TWC and to support their work in helping Texan small business owners get the answers that they need during this crisis. I want to reassure you that the Governor and his staff are dedicated to the safe reopening and operation of the Texas economy. And the focus, as always, is on data and expert medical advice. So I'm standing by this morning to answer questions on business resources and federal funding. Happy to answer questions on the PPP and EIDL as best I can. It changes so often, and there's a lot of shifting sands there. So if I can't answer a question today, you can provide your email address, and I promise I will get back to you. So thank you. I'm handing it back now to Commissioner Demerson.
Good, Kelly. Thank you so much again for joining us, and we appreciate the partnership. I saw Leo Duran's name on there. I was just talking with somebody out of El Paso the other day, and of course I mentioned L&J real quick, and so they were very familiar. But just looking forward to getting back out there, traveling, and doing what we do best, and that's eating. And so we're going to take care of business in that regard. So I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Knight to kind of kick us off with questions that she might have, and then I'll take over to see what's in the chat box. And if we don't see questions there, then I'm gonna have the attorneys to talk about some of the commonly asked questions that they're as well. And so Dr. Knight, you can hit us.
Yeah, so I'll start with a difficult one, but I think, and please, everyone who's listening, please type your questions in. No question is a wrong or bad question. We're kind of all in this together. So please ask away. We have an incredible panel here to help. You know, we've heard a lot about, in our sector in particular, when the 600 went away, extra unemployment benefit, that was a real shock to the system for many, and a lot of restaurateurs thought maybe that would also help get some people back to work. We know that there's a lot of stability in what that provided. At the same time, it was, indicative in some cases to us not being able to refill jobs that, had been furloughed. We now have an executive order by President Trump, and it seems like the state will have some type of responsibility in funding that. And we've had a lot of employers ask, is Texas going to provide this benefit? And so I would love you maybe just to address that. And is that something that employers are going to see again, as far as employees having access to that additional weekly benefit here in Texas?
Yeah, I know that's still being taken under advisement right now. It's an executive order that came through, $400. Then the state putting in 25% of that. So it would be $300 from the federal government, $100 from Texas, if that was the route that we went. Has not been determined. At least I've not heard anything just yet in regards to the finality of it. I know what we're doing is making sure that here at the Workforce Commission that we're in a position to react to it, regardless of whatever that amount is. That we all systems are in place, and that as soon as we get the green light to do whatever it is that we're going to do, that you won't have any headaches behind us not having the inability to do it, our ability to do it. So that's our position right now, is making sure that our UI team is staffed up and ready so that if the trigger is pulled in that regard, then we're in a position to move forward in a big, big way.
Excellent, excellent, good. It's one of those that we get a lot of questions right now, even from employees, right, that may be on the sidelines trying to find that next roll back. Next question is sort of around paid sick leave, part of the Family First Act. So there's a lot of confusion about what the employer's role is in that. So I am a server, I test positive for COVID. We do all the safety checks. Was there any direct contact, other employees that may have to be home quarantined for 2 weeks? And the understanding is that the restaurant, of course, gets a tax credit and pays that employee when they are off. One of the things we're hearing a lot from folks, as much as we've been talking about this, is, oh, I didn't know I had to pay them, or I didn't know there was some types of tax credit that I could get. Can someone maybe just walk through the process for a restaurant owner that has an employee who's positive, sort of what steps they have to take, and also to be sure the process they need to go through to get that, I guess, reimbursement or tax credit for paying that employee? Because there's a question of, if they're a server, how do you calculate their hourly wage to pay them? the tip component has come up a lot. And of course, you're all the experts. So I think if we could dig into that, that would be very helpful.
Y'all want me to tackle that?
Go for it,
We're going to get
Go
some
for it.
Tommy Simmons math. I love this.
Okay. Yeah, it involves a little bit of nerdiness and so on, but the broad brushstrokes of this are that if somebody is in that main category of either being under a quarantine by virtue of some kind of government order or a doctor's order, or if they have been feeling symptoms of COVID-19 and they've gotten a test, or they're about to go get a test, or they're waiting the results of a test, those situations are the primary ones covered by that 2 weeks of paid sick leave. So in most cases, if you're following the CDC guidelines, they're going to take the 2 weeks. So just count on paying 2 weeks of sick leave. Now, it's at the regular rate of pay. The regular rate of pay corresponds to what the regular rate of pay would be for overtime pay calculation purposes, which includes tips up to the tip credit up to minimum wage. So you've got whatever the cash wage is that you're paying the person, plus you've got the tip credit up to $7.25 per hour, but tips beyond that, they don't get counted for overtime pay purposes, and they would also not count toward the regular rate of pay for FFCRA purposes either, because the restaurant has no control over what amount of tips a customer might give a particular server on a particular occasion. That's why it does not have to be counted toward overtime pay. By the same token, it doesn't have to be counted for FFCRA regular rate purposes for the sick leave pay. So it'd be based on minimum wage, $7.25 per hour. And if they normally work 40 hours a week, then it would be 40 times $7.25, $2.90. If they normally work 20 hours, it'd be half of that, but it would be 2 weeks worth of that regular rate of pay. Now, as far as getting reimbursed for that, the FFCRA provides that there are federal payroll tax credits for that. All of the information, all of the procedures for claiming those are outlined on the IRS website. Just click on their COVID-19 link and you'll see a link specifically tailored for the tax credits for FFCRA. Any employer who has trouble finding that link on the IRS website that explains the procedures for claiming it on their federal taxes is welcome to email our office. You can either use the employer info address, or y'all know my direct email address as well, tommy.simmons@twc.state.tx.us. And it may already be in the chat window, but I would be glad to send them the link directly to the information on the IRS website.
That's great. And I think it's reminding people that you have by law to pay these employees, but there's also a tax credit reimbursement. I think that's been where the disconnect is, and making sure people understand. And another question that came up was when employees come in and say, I think I have COVID, and they go home. Are you I have a symptom, and that's just the conversation with the employee is, I don't feel well. In some cases, we're hearing there's groups of them, and of course, safety first, in particular in a restaurant. So those employees all go. When they have that symptom, when does the start of paying them begin? When they come back with a positive test, or when they're just home for a number of days because they don't feel well?
Elsa or Valissa, y'all want to tackle that, or you want me to?
And I can start, Tommy, and
Okay.
then you need to fill in. So if the question is, do I start paying them when they test positive? No, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, FFCRA, doesn't say that you pay only for a positive. If you have someone, like you said, who's feeling ill and says, I think I may, and you say, absolutely, go check on it. The way the statute is written is someone who's exhibiting symptoms and seeking a diagnosis. So if I'm exhibiting symptoms and for 3 days I'm out, I have a fever, I go to the doctor, I'm able to get one of those tests, really quickly. And within 3 days, it's like, hey, good news, it's negative. I maybe just had a cold, or it was allergies or something. then you pay me for those 3 days. Because in my opinion, again, we're not the Department of Labor. So just to be clear, the Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Labor is the one who's going to be enforcing, regulating the statute. But the way the statute is written, if you're exhibiting symptoms seeking a diagnosis, then you get paid for that time off. If after 3 days I come back, then out of my 2 weeks worth of, paid sick leave, I've used 3 days. And hopefully that's all that I end up getting to use. But you have to pay me, in my opinion, for those 3 days. If in 2 months I exhibit symptoms again, and this time I am positive, and out of those 2 weeks, I used up 3 days, but I have these other days left, I would say the employer pay me for that time in a couple of months up until you've reached the 2 week. In total, our understanding is the employer is only required to pay 2 weeks tops. So
That's
it
a
might
great
take me
point.
longer. Yeah.
Okay,
only
so
2
if
weeks
they
tops.
use, 5 days the first time and then 2 months
Yes.
later, they can't use another 14 days. It's in total for that until the end of December when this.
Yeah, right. So the employer, oh, I'm so sorry about that. The employer is not required to pay, the employer can, if the employer has a paid sick leave or something that exceeds
Policy.
that, but under the FFCRA, those up to 2 weeks, up to 80 hours max. So like you said, 5 days, and then 2 months later, I'm exhibiting symptoms again. I use those 5 days. After that, under the FFCRA, the employer is not required to pay me any more than that. But I might
Okay.
fall under your own paid sick leave, for example. And so hopefully that helps. So yeah, it's not tied to a positive result, the way the statute is written. Exhibiting symptoms, because also there was a period of time, this came out in March. So let's remember back then, it wasn't so easy to get testing either.
That's right.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's
so-
been a huge issue for us,
Mhm.
is access to testing with quick turnaround for these reasons, right? If you have to wait a week and you're on the sidelines, it's difficult to run a restaurant. So
Yeah.
a question that came up in the box, which is, what is now the requirement for employees to look for work? So one of the common themes now is our restaurants, it's just accelerated as we start to see a little bit more volume, either in curbside or dine-in. They can't get employees to work. And someone had posted a question is, what is the new requirement? Is there a job search requirement for employees now? Has that been put back into effect? Or what is the Workforce Commission's role in making sure that employees that are at home, and I think it was Michelle, the benefit, the 600 had ended. And so they're just on regular unemployment, and there's that 400 we talked about as whether that comes into play or not. But right now it's strictly the standard calculation for unemployment. But what is the current role, or what is the guidance of those that are unemployed for job seeking?
I can answer that. There is no work search requirement at this time. It's been waived ever since, these new rules came into effect. There was a period of time where that was perhaps going to be imposed, but that hasn't happened because the numbers are still on the rise at the time. So there is no work search requirement. That being said, folks who are receiving suitable offers of work should be accepting those offers of work. And if they reject it, the employer can notify TWC about it. So I'm going to share my screen quickly just to show you all what I'm looking at here, how to report that, because it's a very common issue. You just go to texasworkforce.org. Hopefully you can see my screen. And there is a red banner at the top of every TWC webpage. The easiest way to find that work refusal form is to click on the word employers. And then you'll see there's several links. One of them is the employer work refusal documentation. So you can click on that, and right here it gives you a link where you can fill this out and give us information on the name of the employer, the claimant's name, etc. Basically, if you're giving folks suitable offers of work and they're refusing, you can report them via this portal to Texas Workforce for investigation. It's going to be an automatic deal. The minute you submit it, it's going to be processed in the system and they'll start the investigation. So that's the most common way to do it, so the TWC can look into it. And as far as good cause for refusing the offer, there could be various reasons. Maybe they are living with someone who's age 65 or older who they're caring for, and or maybe they're taking care of someone with a serious medical condition, someone who's immunocompromised, lots of different reasons out there, lack of childcare. So it's possible they could be rejecting the offer for a reason like that, which would be a good reason to refuse the offer, even if it were suitable. So all of that to say, you're welcome to report that. TWC will investigate, no guarantees. It's a case-by-case basis, but we do have that. And I don't know if there's been any more development on this other piece, but my understanding was that there was some discussion about creating a separate sort of portal where employers can report in advance that folks have refused offers, but I don't think that that has gone live yet. And I think that might be still in the works. So for now, this online form would be the way to do it.
And are you seeing a number of people put the employers use that form, or?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I speak to employers on a daily basis. At least one of them a couple times a week tells me that they just reported on that portal. There is a little bit of concern. They'll submit information and they don't get an email saying, we got it, you're good. So I will say that if you click submit, it's automatically in the system. You're not necessarily going to get a confirmation, but it is in there. And we just hope that, you know, now people just have to have patience really to let the investigation start. And if there's any additional information the employer has, maybe they refused in a text message and said, no, I don't want to come back. I want to stay on unemployment. Well, that text message would be relevant. So again, if you feel like you have that additional evidence you want to provide, you're welcome to contact us and we can assist with getting that to the right people for investigation.
Early on, there was an opportunity. The agency, we actually were going to move forward with work search, and we're making sure that we're giving everybody advance time to get ready for that. And so we were going to do that when we were the governor had started the reopening phases, and we had the spike, and so we had to kind of come back and look at reality. Maybe it wasn't the best time, or couldn't be, you know, not at that particular time. But so we're just going to continue to look at situations. But our goal is to put everybody back to work. That's what we want to do. And we want folks to find whatever opportunities are out there. We still have 11 million Texans working, and we're at about 13, 14 million at one point, and we want to get back to that level. And so work search requirements at some point will become hopefully the play, and we'll get back to trying to get folks gainfully employed.
Perfect. And one of the two questions that popped up was around if I have, let's say I'm an employee and someone I know is got positive COVID, right? Do I get 2 weeks of paid leave because I may have interacted with that individual?
Well, for that, and if someone else wants to jump in, please feel free. I was going to share my screen again. It's going to be a case-by-case deal. So it really depends on the facts. So here's what I wanted people to know about. There's a lot of information out there. So I think the starting point would be to go to departmentoflabor.gov, Department of Labor website. Here's where you find what you need. You scroll down a little bit under featured stories, you'll see this link for the FFCRA pay. And when you click on that, you'll notice there's lots of good information on here. One of those that you can see there's some Q&A, lots of Q&A, because every case has one little fact that can twist it and how it's viewed. So there's lots of good Q&A. There's also these fact sheets, one for employees, one for employers. And I'm going to click on the employer one, because that's what we usually deal with. But as you can see, it breaks down how the law actually works and the qualifying reasons for leave. So in that scenario you described, if an individual was advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine because of exposure, that could be a triggering event under number 2. Maybe they have symptoms and are seeking a diagnosis. That would fall under number 3. So just mere exposure without any symptoms, that in and of itself does not qualify someone, to my understanding, for pay under FFCRA. One of these 6 conditions have to be triggered. The new interesting thing on the Department of Labor website, I'm going to go back one page, is this online tool, which was not here at the beginning. There's to determine your eligibility under the FFCRA. Really neat tool. As you can see, the employer tool is not quite ready, but if you're an employee, you can click on that. And it asks you a series of questions that you would answer and go along, and then it would give you an idea. Finally, for employers or folks who are wondering if the law would cover their scenario, you can call the Department of Labor and kind of hear it straight from the horse's mouth as to that case and what they think. But I just want folks to know there's this online tool. Department of Labor website is really where you want to go for that information because it's also updated as things change.
And Melissa, I know that there was a carve out for less than 50, which is Linda's question, which is if they are a business under 50 employees, that they are exempt from providing this 2-week benefit. And I believe that there's a waiver or something they have to complete to ask for that, correct? You don't just qualify when you're under 50. Let's say you have 30 employees, the way it's above, you know, below 500, but then if you kind of hit below that 50 mark, that it could make it impossible to run your business if you had a large number of people out. And so, but I believe there was something when this rolled out that you had to have submit some documentation to exempt your business. Is that still the case, or?
So that's an interesting question. So some companies are not covered under the FFCRA. For example, if you're a healthcare provider or an emergency responder, it doesn't really apply. As far as a company who can't financially afford it because of economic hardship, I think what that individual may have been talking about was more of the getting an exemption from that law. The basic idea is it's an impossibility. We can't pay this money. It doesn't exist. And so that would be a sort, I guess, what they were talking about with a waiver of sorts or an exemption from it. You don't elect it ahead of time. You don't submit a form to the Department of Labor. That's actually in the FAQs. You don't submit anything to say, hey, I can't pay it. Can I get a waiver or be exempt? What you do is you basically document everything. And if you're going to argue, I can't afford this, you want to document your process of how you determine that. And then you can let your employees know, I'm sorry, we don't have the funding. We can't do this. And what would happen is if they make a complaint with the Department of Labor, DOL would investigate, they would contact the employer. And at that point, the employer would say, this is why we didn't pay. We can't afford it. Here's our paperwork. Here's our proof. So you don't submit it ahead of time. It only really becomes an issue if it's raised with the Department of Labor and they investigate. And at that point, your response would contain the argument for an exemption.
Got it. Perfect. Okay. And then Commissioner, would you like me to keep going? I think unless you want to, I see Tom just put a question in that looks pretty lengthy.
I'll hit Tom's, I'll hit him and then we can come back to it. So you're doing a great job.
Okay. I know you play great MP, so.
So this one says, I see this is being recorded. Will there be an opportunity to watch this again? So Todd, will there be an opportunity to watch this again?
Yeah, that's our hope, is that we'll try to bundle for all the participants of Marketplace. We'll try to bundle these so they can go back and watch them again, since they are just for Marketplace attendees right now. But that's our hope, because there's such good information. We have Department of Labor and IRS, I believe tomorrow or Thursday. So you put all these together and it's incredibly valuable. So yeah, that's our intent.
Good. So let me read Tom's comments. Says, I've had more interaction with the Texas Workforce Commission in the last 6 months than I've had in the past 30 years of business. And I want to commend you guys on an outstanding job. We're approaching a time frame when many seasonal student employees are going back to school, but given the virtual structure of many schools, they want to keep working, but at reduced hours. This is a choice on their part of the worker, and there's a debate whether unemployment benefits are available if I let them go. Their point is they're being fired, and my point is that they're not being fired. They're not available to meet the requirements of the job. Appreciate the clarification. So you guys kind of get that? You probably have familiar with these questions, Tommy, and you guys. One of you guys hit that real quick. And Tom,
yeah, so
the comment.
Yeah, I can start on that, and Tommy and I can, pass the baton on that. So normally job separations fall under two types: those initiated by the employer and those initiated by the employee, right? And in this case, the employer says they were seasonal. Normally, I don't have them anymore because they leave to go to school. So I'm unclear, but if the employer still has work and it's the employees, the students who normally leave, that would be, for me, initiated by the employee. So the employee says, hey, there's work available, but I'm going back to school. So normally that would be the employee quitting. In this case, back to if the employer still has work and hours and the employee, the student says, I'm going back to school, but hey, I'm working virtually for school. I still have some hours left. I want my hours reduced. I can't work the schedule I was working. I want to reduce schedule. In my opinion, if that's coming from the employee requesting the reduced hours, that's still initiated by the employee. It's not a layoff from the employer. It's not initiated by the employer based on, business needs. And Tommy gave me the thumbs up. So he agrees with me on that. So if you have an employee or a student who says, hey, I want to keep working, but this is the schedule I now want, make sure they make that request in writing so they don't later say they cut my hours, and they being you, employer. Get that in writing. Hey, Bob, you want to reduce schedule? Put that in writing to see what that's going to work with your school schedule, and let's see if that can work for us. What do you want? So if Bob writes that I want my hours to go from 20 to 15, from 30 to 15, whatever that is, it's because Bob's asking for that. Then the question becomes, if Bob files a claim, Bob, why did you reduce your hours, right? It's initiated by you. And Bob says, it's like, oh, it's because I went back to school. that's a reason that is a personal reason that normally doesn't qualify you for benefits. That's very different from when the employer, you, the company, reduce my hours because you don't have enough work. At that point, I would be qualified for benefits if I met the certain threshold, you know, and all the other requirements. But if it's the employee requesting to work less hours, get it in writing, and if they file an unemployment claim based on those reduced hours, we're going to ask them, why did you ask to reduce your hours? And if it's good cause connected with the work, if it's because work is not following the safety rules, or I'm being harassed, or something else that's, you know, related to the work that could be good cause, that person could get benefits. But if it's just because of my school schedule, most likely not going to be qualified for benefits. Tommy?
Yeah, that's a really excellent answer, Elsa. And the only thing that I would add into that is that summer jobs for students are in a special category. And in our appeal policy and precedent manual, and this is something that any of your members could refer to if they get unemployment claims like this. If somebody is like a high school student or a college student and they take a summer job and the job has been designed that way to be a summer job for a student, and everybody knows that it's going to end when it's time to go back to school, our appeal policy and precedent manual has 2 cases that specifically say that jobs like that, even if they end at the end of the summer and the employee doesn't request for them to end, still, because they were designed that way and because it's important to encourage summer employment, summer jobs for students, that those will be considered to be voluntary quit for personal reason and disqualifying. So go ahead, and if you get a case like that, refer to those cases, and hopefully that'll jog the memory of the claim investigator or appeal hearing officer working on the case, and they will look it up and say, oh, wow, these precedents are really in the manual, so we should apply them, which is what should happen. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Commissioner, do you want to, I missed Regina's, which is is there a time limit to submit loss of hours through the shared work program?
A time limit on submitting
Loss of hours through the shared work program?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So it basically, if you follow the steps outlined on the shared work plan page on the TWC website, then they should be able to claim benefits for any, valid claim weeks that are covered by the shared work plan. The whole question is, what's that plan going to look like? And that's something that you work out with the shared work plan staff. So, they will, backdate it if backdating is appropriate. That we have a special rule on backdating. A claim can be backdated for good cause shown. So all of that would be thrown into the mix, but yeah, definitely go for it. If shared work plan makes sense for your company, it is a good solution. Just get on the webpage and contact the shared work plan staff and get that going.
Perfect. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Good. One quick question says, is the 2 weeks pay for non-salary employees a 14-day period or a 10-day period? Pay for non-salary employees a 14-day period or a 10-day period?
It is 10 days worth of leave. There is a limit in the FFCRA for that. I believe it's 5521. That would be in the fact sheet on the DOL website. Valissa, if you have that page open to the fact sheet for employers, I believe it's 2 or 3 paragraphs down, that the exact dollar amount limit, but it's basically 2 weeks worth of pay at their regular rate of pay. So if they normally work 40 hours a week and they have 2 weeks, it might be spread out over 14 days, but they're going to look at a 2-week period.
Thank you, Tommy. And Paula, thank you for your comments. Says TWC interactions for our mass layoff has been amazing and ongoing. Proud of TWC and how great they're doing in comparison with reports from other states. Thank you so much. Great job, team. And so we've actually had over about 6 years worth of claims in a 5-month time frame. And so 6 years worth of work in 5 months, about 4.5 million that's been out there. That's about $25 billion that have been paid out. And so it kind of puts that in perspective in regards to the amount.
Unbelievable, actually. Absolutely unbelievable. And you're right. You know, God bless Texas, right? Because I have the ability to connect with all my other state CEOs, and the relationship that you all and the work you have put through, even on weekends, right? There were, you know, we had employers saying that on the weekends they were getting just as much service as they would on a Tuesday, and that just says a lot about your team. And Commissioner, can I jump in real quick with Kelly? I would love, you know, one of the things that we're finding is the Paycheck Protection Program money has sort of run out for most of the folks. Although we got that extension, many had spent that money up front because restaurants were hard hit early. We are in negotiations to get a second round of funding. We believe there is still a possibility for that second round in early September when Congress comes back. In the meantime, we have a flood of folks now saying, what are the other grant opportunities? And we know that there was money from the CARES Act that went to the cities or municipalities or counties. But is there anything that we're missing? Is there anything from the governor's office and Small Business Administration that we could be directing? I know like Lowe's came out with a big chunk of money last night. There's other places we can send. There's members on the brink that if they just had another month, right, until we got some more funding or capacity got increased. And I hate to lose them if there's other buckets of potential loans or grants they could be going for.
That's a really good question, and that's an ever-evolving space. It's evolving in a good way in that there are many new opportunities arising all the time. The first place I'd recommend people look is their city economic development teams, right? Cities have many loans and grants. Not every city, but most cities. Much federal money comes in through the state and is fielded out or dispersed out to the cities and the communities for sharing and using in their own communities to suit the needs that are there, okay? I know that there was an announcement, I'm a little uncomfortable raising this, an announcement made yesterday about $18.5 million being provided federally across the country, which of course isn't going to go very far, but it's going to be provided in the form of grants. And much of that money is going to be distributed through CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions. Again, like I said, it's a small pot given the size of the country and the need right now, but that is happening. I think to me, because it's a consistent source, is the city economic development teams are a great place to start. And if they don't have anything to offer, they may know who has. The CDFIs also are a great source. And again, if they don't have grants or useful solutions for the client, they may know who else in the community or the ecosystem has. But what you want to look for are those evergreen sources as opposed to the ones that come and go, because the ones that come and go tend to have smaller pots. They get spoken for really quickly, often fielded to the connected organizations to the grant provider. So, you know, I think if you want to really help your restaurant stay alive and tread water for longer, go to those evergreen sources that I just named. I have some, since you have me here, if there isn't anything urgent right now, I might just say two things. One is that the PPP forgiveness frequently asked questions have been updated recently by the SBA. They've really tackled some quite technical questions, which is interesting. I have a link to that. I will put that in the chat if anybody wants to take a look at that, because of course, forgiveness is a hot topic right now. I did hear, again, a little uncomfortable saying it, but I did hear off the record that there's a lot of discussion about the forgiveness process and the rules at the SBA senior level, and that if companies have time on their side, don't rush to seek that forgiveness ruling just yet. If you have time, wait a little while, because those changes may benefit you. But again, I know there are timelines for people and they have to keep an eye on the actual legal timeline. We also have a fantastic new organization in Texas. There may actually be more than one, but the SBA has funded the Small Business Development Centers to put in place COVID-19 business accelerators, which is a response to the huge demand that they've been seeing in terms of questions in relation to SBA loans and products and small business issues in general. And so I have a toll-free number and I have an email address to the Central Texas it's got a very long name. It's the University of Texas in San Antonio is manning this, if you like, staffing this. And they have essentially got a call center and a center that will respond to phone calls and emails and get through quite a volume there. So if anybody has a question that comes up or isn't getting answered today and it's about business resources, you can send it there or you can phone them. And again, I'll put that in the chat.
Excellent. That's great. And we'll push that out to our members tonight as well. So we've got our nightly communications about 24,000 people across Texas. So we will put these things in. And I think the idea of evergreen sources is a smart one, because we need, you know, like I said, some cases we have given about 2.5 million to independent restaurants as our foundation. And we know that even if it gets them for another week or two before we get clarity. And I actually heard the same thing on the forgiveness, which was do not rush. Be clear that there's a lot of moving parts. I'm so glad you've heard the same thing. I know it's not set in stone, but that's what we're hearing too, is just take your time, and you could have some of these decisions be more favorable as far as what the process would be to get forgiveness. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Okay.
That's
Dale,
great.
we have Dale Robertson joining us as well. And Dale, you guys have partnered with TRA on a nice, huge initiative. And so talk a little bit about that program as well. And there was something in the chat box about any TWC programs that are being underutilized or so. If you think there's anything out there that's not being tapped into, let's speak on that as well. So Dale, go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about that initiative.
Thank you, Commissioner Demerson. Thank you, Dr. Knight, for having us on again. I was joining as a participant for a while there and enjoying the conversation as it was going on. So I'm glad I'm able to join in as a panelist. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity again. We are delighted to partner with the 50 community colleges in the state, as well as workforce development boards across the state. And in particular, you know, the commissioners approved, and you all know this, back in April, that we can use up to $10 million worth of the Skills Development Fund for special COVID training 19 initiative. And that funding was distributed very, very quickly. We were delighted to see that we ended up with about 40 community colleges across the state apply for that funding, as well as 10 workforce development boards. And now we ended up with an additional need, and the commissioners also have agreed to approve up to an additional $5 million for use, again, for the same initiative. So it's really been successful. And I have to say, one of the big parts of that success is the partnership that Dallas Colleges has with TRA on the Promise Education Program, that we've seen that it's been phenomenal to watch the applications come in and what types of training are being requested for, whether it's food handlers or servers or management training, et cetera, front of the house, back of the house kinds of training across the board. And so, and I've also seen applications across the state, and I know you're reaching out into the rural communities. So the question I ask about rural communities, I think that program is reaching far and wide, because as we have used the opportunity to share with other community colleges that serve smaller communities, what can they do? We've shared, well, look at that program. You surely have a restaurant, and you surely have some other retail establishment in your community that can benefit from some training. And I think some of them have taken advantage of that. So that's been a great opportunity. If you look at the map of Texas and where we have community college, I mentioned there were 50 community college districts, and out of those we have 40 that are participating right now. I think we're really well covered. So rural communities, if you're having a trouble getting out to support from your either local workforce board or your community college partner, reach out to us. We have an email set up called smallbizc19@twc.state.tx.us. Again, that's smallbizc19@twc.state.tx.us. It's a great opportunity if you're anywhere in Texas and you're interested in training your employees and you need to know where and how you can get training, reach out to us, and we'll make sure you get connected with the right entity locally.
Thank you, Dale, and thanks again for joining us as well. And so as we continue to round out, I'm going to ask the attorneys to kind of think about some of the questions that you have not heard here that you know the employers, the restaurant community would be interested in speaking on. And so I'll hit Tommy first and then circle around. But anything that you're hearing out there, Tommy, that you think we need to share with the employers that are on the line today?
Well, there are a couple of big ones like work refusals and fraud. And one of the biggest items of fraud that we've been hearing about recently is people are getting evidence of unemployment claims and they haven't filed claims. And sometimes the employer will notice it from a claim notice, or the employee themselves will approach the employer and say, boss, just want to let you know, I got contacted about filing an unemployment claim, but I didn't file an unemployment claim. So any company that gets notice that a claim has been filed and the person who is the alleged claimant swears that they haven't filed a claim, that can be reported, via our fraud portal on the TWC website at either twc.fraud@twc.state.tx.us, or there's a web portal for reporting, suspicious claim activity as well. And that's on the employer link that Velissa showed you earlier. So if somebody else wants to talk about work refusals, y'all can bring that up. But those are the main issues that we have been seeing.
Okay, Velissa?
Sure. So this week, we're actually seeing this, and last week, a lot of employers are contacting us about wage verifications and things like that. There's a lot of confusion where you have employees, even in restaurant environments where they're working a few shifts here and there. You'll get a wage verification notice or an earnings verification where you are trying to verify the earnings that were reported to TWC. So I just wanted to let employers know, because there's been a lot of confusion, that if you have difficulty filling out those forms, you can reach out to us and we can get you to the right staff members at the agency to assist you in filling it out. That tends to be the hot issue for a lot of folks in the last week or so. So if you are one of those folks and you get a wage verification notice or an earnings verification form and you don't know how to fill it out, let us know. The attorneys in this office can't fill it out for you. We can't give you legal advice and act as your private attorney, but we are happy to get it to the right people. And that's kind of the basic understanding for our office in general, is that we are here to help you in any way that we can. So if we're not the right people to help you, we can get you to those right people. So by all means, reach out to us. It's all right. Yes, we are working a lot of long hours, but I think at this point we're all part robot. And we're handling.
Melissa, that is so true.
So we'll robot click it over to Elsa. So.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, to some extent, through the emails, we are sort of a clearinghouse. So point number one, when we say reach out to us, we're going to try and help you. We individually may not have the power to get rid of your chargeback, to change the employee's response or what the employee said. So to that end, chargeback. Getting a lot of emails. I mostly, deal with emails. So getting a lot of emails. I have my, finger on the pulse of what's going on with employers. And early on, the agency guidance was, hey, you for-profit taxed employers, if the job separation resulted from the natural disaster, that's COVID-19, you're not supposed to be charged. So a great sigh of relief, I'm sure, went across all employers in Texas. And then the employers sort of said, great, I'm not supposed to be charged, and maybe didn't touch the claim again. Didn't respond to the claim, just thinking, hey, I'm an employer, it's COVID, I won't be charged. So now they're finding out that they're getting chargebacks, or they're getting determinations, or they're finding out when they didn't respond to the claim originally. Like Melissa said, they're getting wage verification letters that say, hey, here's your potential chargeback, or here's the chargeback. And then I get the emails like, hey, what happened? I was told there would be no chargeback, and now this is happening, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the period of time now where you as an employer, if you get something that says you're going to be charged and you're like, the job separation resulted from COVID, I shouldn't be, make sure to appeal that, guys. Don't email us or call us and say, hi, TWC, fix it. We can't just, and I'm going to do air quotes, just correct it. We're past that stage of making a correction, okay? We want to help you. We want to make sure if you're not supposed to be charged that happens, that you get the benefit of that. But it's not an automatic, and we're not mind readers, and not all job separations resulted from COVID, because even though we're doing like a year's worth of work in a month, back in the day before COVID, a lot of job separations were not related to COVID, right? So we're just not assuming and protecting all the employers' accounts. So our system is not set up for that. We have federal guidelines we do have to meet, and there's requirements. So we still sent out the notices to employers. Again, and I'm finding out that sadly, a lot of employers just sort of said, oh, we got the notice, but I'm supposed to be protected, set it aside, maybe didn't respond. So appeal. And, again, full disclosure, appeals are not coming fast and furious right now. We have so many cases, back to like the commissioner said, about a year's worth every month of claims. So our appeals the last I checked with our director of appeals, are about 10 weeks behind from the date of your appeal to the date of your hearing. But if we can, get that reversed, it's only going to happen with action on your part, employer. You need to reach out, you need to appeal, you need to have your hearing, set out your facts as to what happened to try to get that chargeback reversed.
That's great advice. And I will I'm also going to put that in the note tonight, because I think they have been stacking them up thinking that no chargebacks were to come. So we just really need to reinforce that. And it's just appeal, right? That's just appeal it. Don't call you, don't send an email, appeal it and let that process.
That's exactly, because my response to you is like, if you received a notice of claim, you need to, can't tell you what to do, but a timely response is the only way to really protect your appeal rights. So again, throwing it out there, yes, you're supposed to be protected from chargeback taxed employers, but it's not automatic. It's not just like this blanket, all employers are protected. We still want you to respond. We still want you to tell us why, because sometimes maybe Susie was fired because she was doing a horrible job or coming in late or, stealing from you, but Bob was because of COVID. So we're not going to treat Susie the same way we're going to treat Bob's claim.
Right. Yeah, you have no way to know that.
And we have no way to know if you, employer, don't tell us. So we still sent those out. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. And then quick question, Commissioner, on the employer conference. Is that something that all employers in Texas can attend virtually, or do you want to give a little bit more? I just got 2 text messages saying the commissioner mentioned an employer conference online. So maybe just a little bit. I know there's probably no date set, and we went to a virtual conference, so we can share war wounds on that. But
that's funny because as you were talking, my next segment was going to be in moving forward. Let's talk about things that we're doing in the future that we're you guys are just doing yeoman's work in terms of staying alive and providing the essential workers that are out there, the restaurant owners, the commitment, the sacrifice that has been made has been pretty phenomenal. And so we are there, and we've answered a lot of those questions. And again, the team's here to answer those anytime, even past this forum. But there's another side. We do still have restaurants that are still in business and that are committed to trying to do that. And so, in a moving forward standpoint, I was going to move to the TCEs and mention that, and just ask one of the members of the team to kind of talk about our TCEs. We started out back in January. We were sold out. I think we were in the Woodlands. We were in Houston, different places. And our last one was in the Valley. Another sold out event where these employment law attorneys are just providing just valuable information to businesses that are out there. And so you guys talk about what we're doing next.
Sure.
Well, I'll kick it off and then let the others talk about it real quickly. We're going to do a virtual conference, and Velissa and Elsa and Mario Hernandez and I are going to be the main speakers on this. We might have a guest speaker, that's possible, but we'll be talking about the most important topics. Velissa?
Oh, thank you. So it's still a little bit in the development phase. We're trying to figure out how to give everyone news of the day in compact pieces so that it's easy to understand. So we're still trying to put together the bits and pieces and get our presentations moving. But in light of COVID-19, we had to suspend our in-person conferences, and we want to give people the information. So we're hoping that here in the next month or so, I think that we'll have a good, plan moving forward. And so my understanding, the conferences that we have are generally self-funded. There used to be a cost associated because we had to pay for the venue and the snacks and the food and the coffee and the speakers and the travel. But that's not happening since we're doing it virtually. So I don't want to speak ahead, but my thinking was that there wouldn't be a charge for this since we're already filming from home. Of course, if there are any fees that are anticipated, I suppose there may be something there, but at this time, I don't see the standard cost associated with our conferences is not going to be the cost. I think there may be no cost because it was just for the purpose of paying for the venue and the food and the Wi-Fi or whatever. So we don't really have that issue. We're still trying to work out the logistics as far as how many folks we can have to join these conferences. Because we would love to open it up to the entire state, but we also know how large Texas is and how many employers there are, since I think Texas has the 9th or 10th largest economy in the world. So that's tons of people. 7th as of last year, 7th. Huge, lots of business happening. So ideally, to open it up to the whole state would be fantastic, but we know the volume may not be able to handle. So we're trying to figure out how we can do that. And I think we're also all on board with recording these so that people can go back and view them again and take notes, share them. And our goal is to get people this information so that they can have it and that it's easy to understand. So I think that's what we're doing right now. I don't know if Elsa or the commissioner has any more details as to the potential cost or the logistics of it.
Not as to the cost, but we were getting some questions about that because we just recently launched a bulletin, which I believe is going to be kind of a monthly bulletin with information, and that conferences were listed on there. And so we got some emails saying, hey, when are those scheduled? And is it going to cost us money? And so we're getting answers out to those. But Commissioner Demerson from the get-go has always basically erred on the side of let's give employers information. There's a lot that they don't know. Things are changing all the time. And to that end, our conference is changing as well. So the conference is going to be virtual. It's not going to be a full day. Like Melissa said, it's going to be in small chunks. And original plan from the commissioner was kind of maybe do two a month, if you will, have it be a rolling thing, because especially if we do short, chunks of time, because everyone's attention span, and you guys employers, you're still running your businesses. So we don't want you to take out more than like your lunch break. And that's kind of what we were structuring, or the commissioner was thinking, perhaps an hour and a half lunchtime every other week or twice a month, and give you the latest information, because we all know if the $400, Dr. Melissa, the $400 comes through, what is that going to mean for me and my employees? So we don't want to give you old information. So information from 6 weeks ago is not going to be the information you need today. So if we then give you information as we're going through, and we're all going through this wave or these currents, of news changing events, and as the health and safety news changes, and as schools come up or don't, and the governor provides other guidance, and we get a new PPP, and all these questions come up again, we can't have a static conference. So the conference, the idea is to have it changing as the news changes, as the information changes, as the circumstances change. So it might be the kind of thing where, hey, we become neighbors and we see you guys every other week, twice a month, the same employers. We just want to open the door, have the avenue there to provide the information that you guys need. So that's kind of how the conferences are going to shape up. It's not going to be a full day. It's going to be this evolving regular. We're going to be like your neighbor, going to go visit my TWC neighbor this week.
Yeah, but that's good. That's you foster a very partnership-oriented environment. Employers, this is scary stuff for a lot of employers, and there's a lot to navigate. And so knowing that when they always reach out, you are so quick to respond as a team, and that this is the source of truth, right? So we tell people we'll get, just through our own relationship with you, we have some surface level knowledge, but once we get into specifics, we send them right to you or to the online resources, because they're afraid of making a mistake. The stakes are incredibly high. There's tremendous emotion and fear. All of those things have entered the equation, which normally for just standard either terminations or separations, we don't have all those other factors. So I love the idea of having something monthly, because you're right. Even yesterday, I had a call with Secretary Mnuchin, a small group, talking about PPP. I mean, it's going to change again, right? I mean, there's so much. And so if you just archive it, someone could go back and watch it and say, hey, this is relevant. And you're like, no, it changed. So,
yeah,
I love
not
that.
anymore. That was so 20 days ago. No.
Yeah.
Don't look at that.
Goodness.
So this is the book here, Texas Guidebook for Employers. And so this is one that Tommy gets a lot of credit for. This guidebook is just full of good information there. And it's also available online as well. But the employment law attorneys, they'll be making sure that we're giving good, relevant information in a timely fashion as we go forward. Along with moving forward with TCEs, the governor's office also has these webinars that they've been doing. And Kelly, if you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing, this is good information again for employers. And they've had a number of those, and I know they have some coming up, even to the point of starting a business. I think that's a new one that I think you're getting ready to get kicked off, but a lot of good information there. Kelly, you want to speak to some of those?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Commissioner Demerson. Yes, we've done 11 webinars to date, and we've had over 20,000 people participate or register, which is a great reaction. And we've done so many and done them very frequently because, like we just commented on, the information has changed and changed again, and new opportunities came along. And so we tried to be agile and move with that. Most of our webinars have been on federal funding from the SBA, the EIDL and PPP loans, and the changes in the new information. However, we also have dealt with the fact that businesses are coping and treading water and looking ahead. And so we have another, excuse me, another title that we sort of interject, and it's called Business Strategy for an Evolving Future. And it talks about cash flow management. It deals with, upping your game online. How do you do that? How do you do that for free? We are doing one tomorrow, actually, at 1 o'clock, and it is going to be on starting a business. We've had probably an above average amount of inquiries over the last 2 months or so about how do you start, where do you go, what do you need to do. So tomorrow's webinar is going to be about that very early stage in starting up and the state agency's roles. Where do you go to start an LLC? Where do you get free advice, and so on. And so that's tomorrow. I can actually put a link in there, although I reckon our audience all already have started, but I will put a link in there in case anybody wants to pass it on. Anyway, we'll have many more into the later on in the year. Every couple of weeks, we'll be doing them again, focusing on what businesses are asking right now.
Yeah. So it's real good information there. And so Kelly, thank you guys for what you're doing there. I love it. Even in today's time, Texans are asking, how do I start a business? I mean, that just shows, again, our resilience and our go for it attitude as well. And so Dale has also been doing some things very interesting on a go forward basis where you're providing information to different industry groups. You want to talk about that real quick?
Sure. Yeah, we, certainly with Texas reopening, one of the areas we wanted to highlight for our colleges and workforce boards and our partners in economic development at the state and local level was how businesses were dealing with the transitioning and training needs during COVID-19. So we've had a series of sessions with business leaders from various businesses or associations, along with our training providers, colleges, workforce boards, as well as some of the third-party training providers there. And in fact, we had one, we set up 6 of these sessions. So this is a good place for me to plug that we have another one coming up next Tuesday on the 25th. Commissioner Demerson will be our opening remarks commissioner on that one, and we will focus on energy and petroleum petroleum refining industry. But we've done one on e-retail and e-commerce, in which Commissioner Demerson was the opening speaker on that one as well. We had TRA, we had some other retail providers and e-commerce providers across the state. But those 6 sessions took place generally on that schedule every 2 weeks on Tuesday afternoons at 2 o'clock, just for an hour, brought employers together to with our training providers to talk about what's changing in industry, how is training adjusting to that need. And then also, we also emphasize a lot for folks who have been laid off and maybe are not going back to the jobs they held previously. What are the opportunities to go into an in-demand career pathway? And we highlighted that as well. So, and we'll do more of that in the fall. We'll continue to think of ways that we can use this new platform and new ways of communicating to make sure that we keep all of us linked and working together, with the Governor's Office and Small Business, as well as the Texas Agricultural Commission, TxDOT. All of us are working together to figure out how do we continue to support business development. And I think, as you all know, as we talk about business growth and development, it all has this ripple effect throughout the economies. People are going to buy more food, go out to restaurants, go out to other establishments. And certainly what we're highlighting is that Texas continues to be wide open for business. I found my old lapel here. I think when the commissioner was over at the Economic Development Office, he may have come up with this one, Texas wide open for business, but I've come back on it because true, we're seeing a lot of activity, and I think it will ripple across the entire state, and through whether it's in the Restaurant Association or businesses associated with it in other fields, we'll continue to see a demand. And we're just really trying to make sure Texans know that opportunities are available.
Thank you, Dale, for that. And I wanted to say Texas wide open for business. I want to give kudos to Bob Wingo, who's out in the El Paso area. Sanders Wingo. I want to take his credit for that. That years ago, which is true today. And before Dr. Knight, I know you may have some comments, but I wanted to get this in quickly. Lastly, along with that, moving forward, we're going to be making sure that we're touching base things. We know that this year, Governor said there would be no increase in the taxes, and there wasn't, up until December. But we're coming up on November, and so we're going to be making sure that we are engaging with employers to make sure that they understand the math and those kind of things. Nothing's been determined at all, but we want to make sure that we're getting that out in front of folks so that there's no sticker shock or anything along those lines. And so that's a part of what we'll be talking about in some of the sessions as we go forward. We don't know anything at this point, but my goal is always to be as proactive as possible in anything that we're doing. And I think if we're doing that, at the end of the day, no one's left with I didn't know type of situation. So that's another thing that we'll be doing down the line as well, making sure, and also being open and available to anything, Dr. Knight, that you're hearing from your members in regards to what we need to bring forward. We love, taking advantage of good, relevant, boots on the ground type information and making it information that the folks can use. And so that's another one I wanted to make sure before we closed out that we'll be talking about those issues as we go forward as well.
Yeah, and I'll maybe let anyone else from the Workforce Commission, if you have any, Kelly, obviously from the governor's office, if you have any last comments, and then I'll sort of wrap us up. But if there's anything else that employers need to know, please share.
Good. All right, so we'll hit it this way then, and as I let you guys close out, you guys get your thinking caps on along those lines. And you got to all there, and so it's an opportunity for you to close out, and we'll let Tommy be the end to play catch up in a sense of I forget the cleanup batter, coming
Cleanup batter, that's right. Baseball's back.
Cleanup, getting that done, and so we'll start with Melissa. Anything that you want to share that could be of use to the employers that are out there today?
Yes, so we gave you our hotline number, 1-800-832-9394, but we also realized that we are not always available. We have a high call volume and there's 4 of us. So like Elsa says, we're small, but we're mighty. And that usually worked before pre-COVID, but we are quite busy. So if you'd rather email us, you can do so. And the address would be employerinfo@twc.state.tx.us. It's in the chat box. So if you'd rather not call us and you just want to email, please send us an email and we will respond. We respond to each and every request. We do appreciate your patience. Right now, I think we're behind on a couple of days. We try our best to catch up, and as soon as we do, there's another list. So we're doing our best, but we do respond to everyone. So just email us and we will get back to you. Of course, if you do email, including a phone number would be great. Oftentimes we have more questions before we can give you a more informed response. So if you're willing to do so, please leave us your contact number so that we can call you and discuss your questions. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Elsa. We'll move to Dale. Any closing remarks, Dale?
Oh, I'm sorry if you're hearing a little bit of a background noise there. I'm upstairs in the room and the cat's trying to get in. It's terrible.
That's an aggressive cat.
There's other people in the house. Anyway, but for employees, I just want to say thank you. Everybody has children running around like a cat.
You know what? It's our new life, Dale. We're all just trying to get through this. So I've got a daughter here spinning around in an office chair. She's probably going to break her neck, and I'm just watching it happen.
All right. Well, thanks again. No, I think for us and the programs I put together behind me on my screen share background, all these programs are up and running right now. They're all driven by the needs of business and the business demands. We just funded, awarded community colleges and ISDs across the state under the Jobs and Education for Texans programs over $8.2 million. So there are community colleges and ISDs, independent school districts, that are working to prepare our future workforce right now, and they need employer to come in and talk to them about how they can better utilize the resources we're providing through the community college ISDs. There are community colleges, as I said earlier, that have skills development funds. There are workforce boards that have skills development funds. Their interest is in training. They need to know what employers need. And the only way they can train is if they know what employers need in the community. So reach out to us for that. And all of the programs, Skills Recruit Texas is a program. If businesses are looking to come to Texas, and certainly in the last couple of months, we've seen an uptick, quite an uptick of businesses interested in coming to Texas. And some have even made major location announcements. That's good for all of us when we see that happen. And these programs support that activity across the state. Our Self-Sufficiency Fund program, just over my shoulder here, it's a program designed to help, again, individuals who are in the community who have maybe on public assistance or at risk of becoming dependent on public assistance. They can get into a program locally that helps them train for a job. And that could be in any industry that's in demand right now. industry recognized certification. So we have opportunities. These programs have not gone away. We've been flexible in the way we are operating them to make sure we're meeting employers' demands. And that includes employers in the retail and food industry, the restaurant industry as well. So reach out to us. I put our contact information in the box as well as in the chat box. But feel free to call or send an email anytime and any questions you all may have. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Dale, for that. And so we're going to move to Kelly. That JET program that Dale mentioned, Dr. Knight, one of the first grants that we did was an independent school district doing culinary. I mean, it was
culinary kitchen, yeah.
Yeah,
And we're going to need to bring that back, right? Because we have about 175 districts that use our ProStart program. Some are going online, some are not. And so we partner with the Escoffier Academy to at least get online content. So these students at home in CTE still had access to practice. And so you can think about how we're going to go forward in a virtual way, make sure these kids get trained. It's going to change. So we can't wait to talk about that too. That's the nice thing about making this a little bit of a turn towards recovery versus being in the muck is going to give us a chance to take advantage of these programs. And for our students and our workforce, that shift to online in some format is going to be exciting about how we're going to get that done.
Very much so.
Yeah, I know Ali has a question about any idea how long the approval process takes for the Safe Restaurant Certification Grant approval program from TWC with Dallas College. So the approval process, Dale, any ideas of how long it takes or what have you?
We're approving those really quickly. You know, our team, when the application comes from the college, if it comes in before Tuesday morning, we're meeting on Tuesdays at 11 and Thursdays at 11. And by the end of those meetings, every application we have in for training is approved, unless there is an issue maybe with the business partner. Sometimes some business partners have to go through our regulatory integrity check to verify that they're current with the state of Texas business law and labor laws. And that might create a delay where someone will contact the business owner and speak to him or her or whomever their accountant is to verify things like their tax ID number or that any issue related to that or franchise tax issue could be. So, but otherwise we're committed to about a 72-hour turnaround. And now that the funding is out, it is like move as fast as possible.
And I had a good talk with the chancellor of Dallas College because I think there was a little bit of a backup on that side. So it sort of has a couple of things. You have to apply, it goes through Dallas College, goes to the Workforce Commission and back. And so I think they've done a really nice job of accelerating that. So I think we'll see a quicker turnaround as it comes through the funnel. And obviously TWC has put a lot of resources towards this for approvals twice a week, Ali. So I think you'll start to see if you haven't gotten your approval, it's going to come much quicker than it had been. We've got the Dallas College side kind of figured out. So I think that'll help.
Okay, good. And let us know if we can do anything to help as well.
I was gonna say, you got to contact Dale if we need anything from that standpoint. But like Joe on your team has been right there. I mean, front line with me. He'll hit me on the weekends and what have you.
We have our restaurant folks, right? It's every day, all time. Right?
he's that committed to the program, and I love that. And so
he is
responsive to them as well. And so I know we're coming up on our time, and so I wanted to allow Kelly to have some closing comments, and then we're going to move to Elsa and Tommy.
Great, and thank you. And I know that we are conscious of time. I want to just thank you again for including me. If anybody has questions that maybe we didn't get to or things that occur later, I've included our email address for the small business team. There's several of me who can answer your questions and find others, experts who could tackle more technical things if necessary. One of the things that struck me as we talked just there is to remind everybody actually how lucky we are to be in Texas. I know it's been a tough time, a really tough time on everybody, but Texas is the best state in the union to do business in, and it's also the best state in the union to start a business, as we're going to talk about tomorrow. So I always think it's no harm to just remind ourselves, even though things are tough, we're lucky to be in Texas. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Kelly. I always say things are tough, but Texans are also tough. Pero Texans are tough, and so.
There you go. Coin it.
I always say what Kelly just said. It ain't bragging if it's true in Texas, and so we're okay with that. All right, we'll move to Elsa.
To me, yes. Yes, my usual closing is Facebook. And if you heard me before, I used to feel so frivolous saying, hey, like us on Facebook, because that was just sort of this kind of, thing for entertainment for some people, but not anymore. The Texas Workforce Commission has been using Facebook and social media as a way to communicate and overshare really, again, erring on the side of, if we think you might need this information, we're going to give it to you. So from live broadcasts, Facebook Live on a very regular basis, from our communications department to alerts. So on nights and weekends, so go Texas Workforce Commission is our website, like us or follow us, I forget what it is, but that is a way when things change, when things happen, that's how I find out if it's after hours or off hours. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook if you want to know what's going on through the Texas workforce. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Elsa. All right, Tommy.
Just a couple of real quick practical tips. One of them has to do with responding to claims or determinations. Every claim notice or every determination will have instructions for responding. And no matter what, if one of those methods for responding seems to be closed off, such as the fax machine, the fax won't go through, or nobody picks up on the phone or something like that, or the online appeal portal seems to be unavailable, the good old fallback position is always the U.S. mail. But no matter what, the response or the appeal must be filed on time. And it's not an excuse that the phones are busy or the fax is busy or something like that. There's always going to be a fallback, and the final fallback position is always U.S. mail, and keep documentation. And then the other bit of practical advice is on wage agreements. It's a good idea, even though the law doesn't require it, always get signed written wage agreements with each of your employees. That can be so important. If there's ever a dispute over wages paid, that gives you the best evidence of the wage agreement. And so that's all I would say, Commissioner, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, Tommy, thank you guys. And thanks again, Elsa, Valissa, Tommy, Kelly, Dale, and Mario, who's answering the phones in our office. Just a dynamic team here at the Workforce Commission. And Dr. Knight, Ty, we thank you guys for the opportunity. And again, we're here for you guys, always here for you. And if there's anything we can do, we stand ready to do that. Let me just thank also the employers that are on the line. We don't take what you do in our state for granted. You're putting our Texans to work, and we appreciate that big time. And I've said it, and I want to overstate it, that we can't wait until we're back out there the way that we normally are, taking care of business in that regard. And so one thing that I've been finding myself doing is tipping graciously with those workers actually providing work. I know everybody on here doing exactly that as well. And so we appreciate you guys. Appreciate what you do. And Emily, I'll turn it back over to you, but thank you guys for allowing us the opportunity.
Yeah, and let me just say thank you again. And I think what Kelly and Commissioner said is so true. I do have the good fortune. I woke up this morning looking at my colleagues in 2 different states that are lobbying their governors to open in-room dining to even 25%, right? And so I try to remind our members, I know this is so frustrating, but having a partnership with state agencies like the Workforce Commission, like TABC, having a relationship with the governor's office that is a 2-way communication is really something that we can't forget is a tremendous blessing as we try to get through this. And I try to remind people this is a long game, right? We've got to get through the rest of 2020, and then we're going to go into 21. But we are already seeing some green shoots. We're already seeing, I was on the this morning with Fajita Pete's, right, out of Houston, and they're expanding up into North Texas. And you wouldn't think that. One of our, a small independent just bought 2 properties in San Antonio out of Austin to open. So we are starting to see those green shoots that we need to celebrate while we as the TRA continue to fight for all the resources we need, especially federally. I did want to make the comment to Tara. For some reason, my computer screen, I can't type right now, but we do have closed captioning, and you can just send a note to communications, and we should have these up just in the next couple of days. We've got 90 hours of content, and I think Elsa said it best. We made a choice not to charge our restaurant members for this entire week. And it was a decision that, we thought about as a team, and we knew that what people need right now is the truth and accurate and timely information with experts. And so it's just going to take us a little bit with a pretty small group to get all that up online, but that's the goal. And so you'll be able to go back. And then of course, with the closed captioning now added in, I think will be a help too. So sorry, I couldn't get to you quick enough. But I guess, besides that, I think we'll keep doing these too. I think as we get through if there is another Bill 5, right, from the CARES Act or coronavirus relief. We don't know what that might look like. We have some indications, but we may even be back next month talking about what that means for Texans. But I just want to thank you. And Commissioner, you have a great team. You know, Kelly, please thank the governor's office again. They have been incredible partners, and we're going to get through it. And I'll tell you, if I picked one state that was going to come out of this really strong, I'd put my money on Texas, and I'm from Connecticut. So that says a lot. So I thank you guys so much. And we look forward to bringing you lunch very soon and sitting in person again. So it'll be fun.
Good. John, thank you guys so much. For some reason, I was thinking we were out here at 12:25. I don't know why. And I was going right on time, and it's 12:25 now.
Hey, perfect.
We had 5 more minutes, but that's okay. I think we got across what we needed to. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you guys need anything listening, you can come to TRA if you don't know a website. But if not, they put out some great resources. And I actually captured them here, so I'll push them out to all of our members tonight so they know those links and phone numbers too.
good. All right.
Okay.
That's
Thank
it.
you guys.
Well, thank you again. Thank you again.
Thank you for
Thank you.
joining
Bye
us.
now.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.